Welcome everyone to our webinar today. I'm Simona from Hermitage Solutions. Let me remind you that Hermitage Solutions is a leading value-added distributor of security solutions. Every month we organize webinars about the most relevant cybersecurity topics. As we all know, one of the biggest cybersecurity challenges threatening all the industries today is incomplete network visibility. Today, we will try to show you how organizations can overcome this challenge by increasing device visibility with the help of Genians. But more about how organizations can control their network security, we will hear from today's speaker, Brett Hamill, Solutions Architect at Genians. But before we started, a few reminders. Every one of you is muted. If you get some questions during the webinar, please write them straight to the chat box or direct to us. Our email is info@hermitage.lt, and we will try to answer them all after the main part. So now I'm giving the floor to Brett. Good luck, Brett, and enjoy the webinar.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the presentation today. My name is Brett Hamill, and I am the Solution Architect at Genians. Today's overview will be on network access control, prepared for Hermitage specifically. And today we will cover some technical aspects as well as some business aspects. We understand that we have a mixed audience today with various technical levels. So we'll be touching on some technical topics, but also practical business applications of the solutions we'll be discussing today. Also, today's presentation will be recorded, so will be available afterwards as well. With that being said, we'll move on to the presentation. The agenda for the presentation today will be to discuss four primary items. First, we'll be discussing many of the common challenges that are encountered when implementing network access control solutions. For those of you familiar with network access control, you may have personally faced some of these challenges. For those who are not, this may be new to you, and we will discuss them. We will also discuss NAC architectures and some of the key considerations relative to implementing different NAC architectures. Also, we'll discuss what you should know before implementing a NAC architecture and the various implementation methods such as cloud, on-prem, and NAC as a service. And finally, we'll also be discussing how device platform intelligence, or as we refer to it, DPI, can help your business control the network. A very quick overview of the Genians company. The Genians company main product is Genian NAC. Other solutions are provided by this company, but this is the flagship product. The company was established in 2005, and to give you an idea from a NAC industry perspective, how long ago that is and how much experience the company has in the field, that was right around the time a company called Cisco acquired a company called Perfigo, which eventually, later on in that year, turned into Cisco Clean Access and ultimately Cisco ICE. So Genians has a wealth of experience over this time frame delivering NAC. Over 1,600 satisfied customers globally, and #1 in the Korean market. Also very prevalent in the Asia Pacific region. We are proud to deliver what we consider a next-gen NAC solution, which we'll talk about more in the following slides. This is a quick snapshot of some of the customers. As you'll see, these customers span across various markets. One of the things that should be noted here is that you'll see some large manufacturing customers, and really born out of the support for these large manufacturing customers was the ability to provide enhanced visibility through device platform intelligence. As you can imagine, there is a high demand for visibility in manufacturing and very IoT-centric environments, and that is part of what drove the production of the device platform intelligence feature. Many of you may be familiar with some of the basic, well-known challenges out there, so we won't spend too much time on it. But relative to cybersecurity, these are some of the common challenges. Obviously, IoT is something that is talked about all the time, and it seems every time a new article is printed, the number goes up. So IoT is obviously a challenge. Another challenge is that multiple security solutions are being installed. And sometimes this is very problematic for IT and security staff to manage all these solutions and determine how to integrate these solutions. As such, there's a big push to consolidate solutions and bring that number down to a solution that gives you most of what you can utilize to implement cybersecurity plans. Obviously, there's a large level of spending, and it's all focused on compliance due to audits and other regulatory compliance requirements. And small businesses are especially vulnerable when it comes to cybersecurity, as they are highly affected by cybersecurity attacks, and that can even end up with the business going out of business in the end. Quote from a customer here really sums up some of the things we talked about in the previous slide. I just don't want to add another touch point, as I am busy with our existing cybersecurity solutions, which are not working efficiently enough to catch up with the current business demands as well as compliance. I could not figure out a way to solve my daily issues caused by IT security fundamentally. Also, budget is another headache. So in other words, too many systems, too costly, and are these systems really efficient in addressing the compliance concerns? So some of the basic questions that you want to ask are, what are the essentials of the cybersecurity foundation? How can I get security which is empowered by compliance? How reliable and affordable is the solution? And is it sustainable? For example, if you replace your entire network infrastructure, will your cybersecurity solution function in that environment? Here are some of the common requirements for the various regulatory compliances. As you'll note, there's very similar requirements across the board. So regardless of what industry you're in or what regulatory compliance standards you need to make sure that you're complying with, there is a common set of controls that you need to make sure that your system and your solution that you implement will actually handle. So one of the things to make sure that you focus on, regardless of what security solution you're implementing, is that you're hitting all of these basic controls listed here by the Center for Internet Security. Any solution that does not hit on these likely will not be sufficient for you, regardless of which regulatory compliances that you are subject to. For those of you familiar with NAC, you may understand what some of the basic functionality is. However, it's nice to actually draw a direct correlation between those core cybersecurity requirements that we just viewed a moment ago and how NAC can address those. So what we've done here is drawn a direct correlation between how each requirement can be met by each function or feature of a NAC solution. You definitely want to be able to detect all devices on the network. You want to be able to actually specify what platform. Then you want to be able to collect installed software. You also want to be able to check the IT security policy and compliance, and you want to be able to remediate those devices. Vulnerability management is a key component of that, and we will actually demonstrate how there is vulnerability information included in the Genian NAC solution. Also, all devices and users must be authorized. Privileges will have to be assigned based on the user's role or the device's compliance status. You'll want to inspect each device's configuration and security settings. And finally, any solution that is put in place must have monitoring, alerting, and audit logs to meet security compliance. For those of you not familiar with NAC, we'll cover what NAC is in general. Essentially, a NAC solution is there to monitor all devices on the network and to ensure that those devices are compliant with whatever security checks you put in place. Some of the key components of that are to make sure that the device is identified and classified properly, and then authorized, then given the appropriate level of access when authorized. You also need to make sure that you have visibility of the security policies you're trying to implement. NAC sounds like a great thing to have, so why hasn't everyone actually implemented it? Well, there's many challenges with the legacy architectures of most of the NAC solutions available today. Many times 802.1x or complex port or wireless configurations are actually part of the implementation. Because of this, the IT and security staff may not be trained or familiar enough with those technologies, or even if they are, it causes a lengthy deployment. So there's a lot of touching of your network infrastructure. It takes time, both for initial configuration as well as ongoing configuration change management. Also, single points of failure in many of these solutions, for example, a radius server or an inline device, requires HA. So adding high availability in causes additional complexity, and that will also lengthen your deployment time. Also, basic fingerprinting sometimes is not enough to actually give all of the information that you need to make the right policy decisions. So you don't have a true context about the platforms that are on your network. Some of the benefits of a next-gen NAC solution is that 802.1x is not required, although available. You don't have the complex switch and wireless configurations you do with many legacy systems. You do not have a single point of failure, which means you don't have to have high availability. That allows you to more rapidly deploy the system. And in addition, device platform intelligence is much further than device fingerprinting and provides additional context for you to make the proper business decisions, especially relative to cybersecurity compliance. A little bit about the architecture of the Genian NAC next-gen solution. A few highlighted items. It's an out-of-band solution. There are no network configuration changes required to implement it. You don't have a single point of failure, which we discussed is very important relative to HA. Provides real-time surveillance, granular access control, can scale easily, and can run on physical or virtual machines, including your own choice of physical machine. There are several different options relative to the architecture. There's a cloud-based architecture where the policy server can sit in the cloud. The policy server is where the database is that has all of your information. There's also some built-in services such as DHCP radius syslog. The on-prem network sensor is the key to getting the passive device platform intelligence, and that is all uploaded to a cloud database. The sensor is easily installed. It can be connected through trunk ports to allow visibility to multiple network segments, passively scans and or assesses the network, and then can also enforce access control policies. The last part of the architecture is the agent. The agent provides all sorts of information you would expect an agent to provide, and it also gives you information that allows you to do actual control of the endpoint as well, relative to wireless networks and other security features that you can enable by the agent. Device platform intelligence, which we will give you a brief demonstration of today, provides you additional information other than just a device type. For example, instead of just a printer, you can get information about the specific printer, the manufacturer. You can get an image of the device, the release date. You can also find out if the device is end of life or end of support, how it accessed the network, the manufacturer's country of origin, a link to the product page, if there's any acquisitions of that company. Also, the CVEs for the devices are listed. We'll demonstrate that as well today. That's very important because that allows you to have CV information for devices without actually relying on an external vulnerability scanning system. So this information is actually built in and available for you to use, which you can then use to build policies. So we talked earlier about being able to select the right kind of deployment for your business. Your business may desire to have an on-premise, perhaps regulatory compliance means you have to have on-prem system. The Genian NAC system can be delivered that way. It also can be delivered with the policy server in the cloud and managed by Genian NAC, as well as an MSP model. So there, if you have an MSP or MSSP that you obtain all of your services from, it can be delivered in that model and be delivered by your MSP. There are different versions with different functionality. Today we're talking a lot about visibility. So the basic version provides the visibility functionality. Once you decide you want to actually control network access, that would be professional. And then enterprise allows you to do other things like integrate with external devices such as next-gen firewalls and SIMs. What we'll be doing now is switching to a brief product demo. We'll be highlighting the device platform intelligence. We'll also be quickly covering some other features, and we will be respectful of the time here so we can do some Q&A at the end of the demo. So stand by briefly and we will switch over to the product demo. What we have here is a cloud-hosted system. So we have a policy server in the cloud, which has some various local sensors installed at our Boston office. In here, you'll see various information on the main dashboard. This is highly customizable, and there's over 130 widgets for the dashboard to display the information that's important to you to be able to implement your security policies. So this is a very good tool to have to be able to customize the dashboard to that level, because there's going to be different security teams that have different kinds of information they want to use to craft their policies, or additionally initially audit their network. One of the things to note here is that the visibility piece is something that can be implemented passively. So you'll be able to collect all this information without configuring switches, configuring access points, wireless controllers, implementing a bunch of changes on the network. You can actually implement sensors in their default mode, which is passive, and it will collect all of the information you need to then make your decisions based on what this information says. Many solutions require additional configurations just to get basic visibility. So this is from an architecture standpoint. If visibility is a key component, which it always should be, the first part of your cybersecurity plan should include visibility. It is very easy to implement. Some of the key features that you'll see in the system here are the ability, even in a passive mode, to identify all sorts of detailed information regarding specific devices on your network. So we'll talk about some of those today. You'll have information relative to the connectivity of the device, whether a device has an agent installed, if the device is actually on the network, IP address, MAC address. There's tags that you can apply. There's going to be enforcement policies that you will apply once you have actually gained visibility into your network. And today, a lot of the focus will be on the platform information. You'll also have information regarding host name, domain information, authenticated users, and then also how the device accessed the network. So what access device it connected to, what port, and also location information. One of the things we definitely want to talk more about today is device platform intelligence. So from within your system, each device will be assigned to a particular platform. We'll talk more about the platform database in a second. The reason this is important is the more detailed information you can obtain about a device, the more explicit security policies you can define as a business, and the more granular you can create your security policies and also your access policies for devices connecting to the network. So Having information that is not just a camera or not just a printer, but much more explicit information allows you to create the next level of policies to protect your network. By clicking on the platform information, you'll actually be taken to an external database that is hosted at Genians.com. This database is over 10 years old and has over 3,500 devices just added this year so far. The information that you'll see here is much more detailed than just general fingerprinting information. So, for example, this particular camera, you may have a policy where Wi-Fi cameras are allowed on the network and you want to provide specific access for those, but not every camera is the same. So you'll find information here relative to a link directly to the manufacturer website. There's information here that is actually flagged this as an end of sale item. So if you click on this, it'll actually tell you where it found this using Elasticsearch methodology, and it will actually show you that this product is end of life. So having an end of life product on your network may be a cause for concern. Additionally, it will tell you what kind of network connections it has. It'll tell you what kind of fingerprinting methods were used to identify the platform. And the business contact information here as well about the manufacturer, the country of origin, if there's any acquisitions that may be occurring that could affect the ability for this company to support this product. You also have the ability to suggest an update. So if you have information about a platform, your input can directly be sent to Genians so they can update the overall database. Very important here is vulnerability information. So all the vulnerability for the manufacturer is listed, but more importantly, the specific vulnerabilities for this platform is listed. And sometimes these can be something of grave concern. So without having an external vulnerability scanner or relying on an external system that creates thousands of alerts every day that you have to sift through, you only have to worry about the vulnerabilities for the devices connected to your network, and the device platform intelligence provides you that by default. In addition to that, if you wanted more information about the specific vulnerability, you can actually click on the vulnerability link. You'll be taken directly to the NIST website, and you can view all of the vulnerability details for the vulnerability. A little bit more about the device platform intelligence database. Again, visibility is the key and the foundation really for any cybersecurity plan you're going to implement. This database, as I discussed, is over a decade old, and every week is updated with new platforms. You can actually view the platforms updated each week. This database is also accessible to you and searchable. So you can actually search this database if you were going to want to proactively screen before you connected a device to your network to see if there are any issues. You could actually do that. So you could proactively look and see, is this device that I'm about to connect to my network, is it safe? What information is there about this device? And you'll get all that information at your fingertips through the searchable database. So not only is this an important key feature for you to have from within your actual system, but it's also a tool that you can use to proactively protect your network. Above and beyond what we've discussed so far, there's also a built-in DHCP server in the Genian NAC system. There's IP functionality really split into two categories. One is there is a built-in DHCP server which can provide all the services you would expect. This is a configured DHCP scope here, but also even without using the Genian NAC DHCP server, you have visibility into IP utilization on your network. So what this means is system administrators who may be looking in their server or looking in a spreadsheet to determine if IP utilization, to determine what the IP utilization is for assigning new devices, for example, this actually gives you a screenshot of that. Additionally, you can actually enable conflict prevention. So because of the layer 2 ARP enforcement architecture of the Genian NAC solution, there's visibility into all of the DHCP requests on the network and also all the DHCP offers on the network. So the system is able to determine if there is a conflict occurring and actually prevent that. Normally that is something that a system administrator has to do on their own. Again, this is an optional feature, but it is built in and available to have a full DHCP server functionality. Above and beyond that, we also have the ability to manage switches. So if you wanted to use the Genian NAC, this is an optional feature. If you want to use the Genian NAC system to actually manage switches, you can get information relative to each switch, what ports are active, traffic utilization, port security settings, etc. Also, you'll notice here that there's 3 MAC addresses listed for the same port. So by looking at that, we can actually see that there's actually another switch connected to this switch. So you have visibility not only of the general information about a switch and the ports that are active and information about those ports, but more detailed information about every MAC address that is connected to each switch on the network. You also have the ability to shut down ports and add descriptions to ports. So if you wanted to add write access to your switches, you'd be able to do an admin shutdown of a port and manually control your network that way with this feature. Genian NAC has wireless sensor technology. What this means is it is actively monitoring all of the wireless nodes on the network. So information can be obtained about every single device on the network relative to the SSID it is connected to, the MAC address, the vendor, security settings for the specific SSIDs, the protocols, signal strength, and location information. This information is very valuable if you're in a dense area with lots of different SSIDs and you're trying to manage that environment, both from a practical standpoint and a security standpoint. Additionally, because Genian NAC has visibility into wired and wireless networks, you're able to tell which of these SSIDs are internal and which of these SSIDs are external. So this comes in very handy when it comes to implementing additional policies, including agent action policies, which can prevent employees from connecting to unauthorized SSIDs. So having this information is crucial for you to be able to make the proper security decisions about your network and what wireless networks you actually want your users to connect to. Once you've actually analyzed all the visibility on your network, you can now start to build your cybersecurity plan and start to decide how you want to group and categorize your devices. That's the critical next step to determine how to protect your network, is to first determine how you want to group these devices together, because after that you can assign specific privileges. There's over 500 combinations of information that can be used to actually categorize these devices. Once you've actually made the determination on how you want to categorize these devices based on all sorts of information like identity, tag, platform, operating system, whether there's an agent installed, etc., then you can move on to actually create enforcement policies. The enforcement policies give you the ability to match on certain conditions and then provide certain levels of access. A perfect example is each system comes with a set of canned policies. One of those would be antivirus non-compliant policy. So when you actually look at this policy, what you're doing is you sort of built the foundation. First you created the visibility, then you actually created the category, and once you created the category and all of the conditions, then you can assign access. So for example, with an antivirus non-compliant device, you can give it internet-only access so it could remediate to an antivirus website and nowhere else. One thing to keep in mind with these policies is because this is basically a software configured policy that is ultimately linked to an active node on your network, this node can move around your network and will always have the same permissions. So there's no reconfiguration or access lists that you have to deal with, or downloadable ACLs or complex configurations to actually try to manage a device like this that may roam around your network. Excuse me, these security policies will follow this node as it moves, regardless of whether it's on your wired or wireless network or how it connects. All sorts of permissions can be created. You can create these as complex as you would like. You can create network objects based on name or IP addresses. You can create different services on your network, and then also you can create time of day policies. One last item I wanted to cover before covering a couple of other included features would be information relative to agent information on an endpoint. So what we can do is we can find a device with an agent installed, and we can see what kind of information is able to be extracted by the agent. This information allows you to actually make security decisions about your network. Operating system information, physical information about disk, information about USB adapters, information about the IP stack. All this information is available. That allows you to create policies such as USB policies, etc. User account information, whether the screen is locked, peripherals attached, information about the traffic that is actually on a device. So you can actually see what kind of ports a device is communicating on, all of the software installed for a device, antivirus is installed on the device, any Windows update patch information, as well as all the policy information about what policies are applied to this device, as well as detailed logging information. So again, the key here is visibility, and visibility empowers you to be able to apply the appropriate security policies for your network. One final item to review here. There's also a built-in radius server. The radius server itself is a component that can be used similar to the DHCP server. So all sorts of different authentication options are recognized here. You can do certificate authentication and upload a server certificate, as well as doing MAC authentication as well. And this is great because you can tie a group of devices that are not 802.1x capable to a particular group and authenticate those devices via MAC authentication.